Hey everyone, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Lee Martinuzzi with you as always, and this is episode 1124. I sit down today with Nick Niehaus. He's a marketing strategist and founder of Business Video School and Everyday AI. Nick shares how real estate professionals and really any service-based business can use video and AI now to connect more deeply, build greater trust, and stand out in a crowded market. Now, we all know video is here to stay everywhere, and there's so much content going out there every day. So an important conversation if you're in business, as I am here in Australia. There is some really cool stuff that Nick shares in these conversations about how we can use video and AI to enhance our connection with our ideal target audience more deeply. So I hope you enjoy it, guys. As always, if there's anything we can help you with in life or in business, reach out and let's connect. Enjoy the conversation. We'll talk at the other end. G'day, Nick. Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
So, Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself. We just had a little bit of a pre-chat about your work, and you've been doing it for a while. In particular, marketing, how to use marketing for lead gen. You talk a lot about video. Your business is Biz Video School, which you can find bizvideoschool.com. But you also started to delve into AI now, which is definitely the hot topic of the moment. So I'd love to talk about those things with you, but just give us a bit of an outline as to your background and where you've come from.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been, basically in marketing my whole career. I actually studied entrepreneurship in college, so I'm very entrepreneurial minded. But basically, yeah. I mean, I got into video, man. It's been over a decade. Mostly real estate. So I mostly work with real estate agents, but not filming the houses. Everybody always thinks that kind of first, which makes sense. But more the personal branding side. Teaching people to get comfortable on camera, come up with different ways to use it. Video is a form of communication. I think that's where a lot of people are getting video wrong. They make it too much of a performance, and really it's just the way we talk to each other nowadays, kind of especially since the pandemic. So that's a big part of what I do. And so a lot of that is, building out funnels, helping people figure out what their messaging should be. And that kind of led me to AI. So past couple of years, I've been actually using AI to write the code to build other AI powered tools. So it's kind of AI creating more AI. And I've been basically building custom tools as lead magnets. So these very, very catered, very narrow, specific tools that do just one thing. And we use them as lead magnets. I call them adaptive lead magnets. And so now I'm kind of exploring, merging the two. We're doing some challenges in our school now where the students are making videos to market their adaptive lead magnet tools. So very kind of cutting edge stuff. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I find a lot of people are more intimidated by video than they are by AI. AI personally scares me more than video because, I've used it a lot and I kind of see where it is both good and potentially dangerous. But video is very exposing, right? So we're really scared of being on camera. So we definitely work on that with them a lot. But so been at it for quite a while now.
So do you work one-on-one with people, or is it more sort of, hey, these are the courses that we run and the programs so you can learn how to do video better, for example?
Well, it's a lot of everything, I would say. I'll tell you what, online education has changed so much. I feel like the pandemic also kind of disrupted that market quite a bit. I mean, we used to, we've always done live stuff. So a lot of our stuff is live on Zoom, so people can interact with us, ask questions. We do live Q&A sessions. We do provide some one-on-one time as needed, but most of it is kind of small group, so that's what we found to be most effective. And lately, what seems to really work for folks is not quite classes, but more like, I don't know, implementation sessions. I'm still trying to think of the right word for it. But basically, you come on an hour on Zoom, and for a piece of that, you're learning something. But for a piece of it, you're also doing something, And so our new sort of philosophy with the online training is that you're going to leave the class with the work done, right?
Yeah.
So that way there's no homework, there's nothing I have to research or follow up on. And people seem to really like that, this idea of kind of just show up, learn a short little lesson, make that one thing, get it done, put it away, in and out. And so, yeah, I mean, I really think, that, and then there's kind of this element of being reinforced by AI that I think is sort of starting to emerge now, where you either have like an assistant that's an AI chatbot, or my personal favorite is one use case tools, so maybe you're making an ad and we might provide a tool that generates the graphic for your ad, and you just sort of describe what you're advertising and it cranks it out and hands it to you. So I think that's the future. A lot of this online training stuff is maybe small group, definitely, live so people can ask questions and engage with you. But the main kind of key thing being that we're going to get something done while we're there.
Yeah, yeah, hold their hands, and I think that's what I see missing a lot as well, is that there's a lot of information going out, but less of that. Hey, let's help you put it into place, because that's where people
Right.
mostly struggle with, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, okay, well let's start with talking about marketing, because I think this is important for anyone listening to the podcast today.
Hmm.
Um, because most people have a personal brand or something that they're passionate about that they want to put out to the world. It could just be a passion product, or it could be a business that they're using to make an income. What is it about marketing that's changed in the last 10 years since you've been doing it, if anything, or are the fundamentals still the same?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I mean, a lot has changed, right? I mean, 10 years, especially in the online world, is forever. So if you look at that, I mean, I think number one is the noise has skyrocketed, and probably my least favorite part of AI is the fact that it's made it a lot easier for people just to crank out a constant stream of junk.
Yep,
And there are ways to use AI that you can make good content too, but a lot of it's just sort of cranking it out and posting it and moving on. That is probably the thing that's changed the most, is just the amount of stuff that
yep,
people are bombarded with. I mean, I remember when I started in this business, the stat at the time was like we see 5,000 ads on average every day, and it's probably, I don't know what the number is. It's probably gone up since then. But that's not including social media posts. That's not including all the emails we scan on a given day. So to me, that's the biggest change or sort of challenge, is just that to get someone's attention is one thing, to hold it is another, to continue to follow up with them in a way that continues to get their attention. That's all just gotten a lot harder. But you're right. I mean, I do think the fundamentals are still the same, and I think if anything, that is even more of an advantage now, is to really dig in on who that ideal customer is. I mean, when I learned this stuff, back in school, it was all, it's very academic, right? But that idea of like the customer avatar and, what are the details of this person and how well do you know that ideal customer? And that's only gotten much more important in my mind, right? So I think, a lot of what we teach our students is, look, I know it can be hard. It can feel like you're pigeonholing yourself to kind of pick a person and stay focused on them. But if you don't, I mean, the companies and businesses that are not being clear about who they're communicating with, and then finding what are those topics, those triggers, those pain points that person always cares about, they're just getting bombed. They're getting, kind of run over by everything else, right? They're just sort of getting blended into all the other noise that's happening. Their posts and their ads and all that stuff just don't get any attention.
mm,
So that's the funny part, right? Is that yes, in a lot of ways, it is just come back to the fundamentals. Are you really understanding your market properly? Are you understanding who it is you're trying to sell to, and do you know what they care about? And it's crazy to see people do this for the first time. They've been in business for 10 years and they go through and they finally think through about it and they finally kind of find those topics that they think are going to work, and everything gets easier, right? So I
yeah.
think that's probably the biggest thing.
So marketing fundamentals. So you start off with understanding your customer, your avatar,
Yeah.
who you're looking to connect with.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so the step beyond that to me, once you understand that person, so I also say this, like if you're trying to do this and you don't know who that person is, just take like your favorite three customers from the past year, right? Or maybe there's that one person you just really enjoyed working with, you had a blast, you'd wish you could copy them and work with more of them. You don't have to be any more formal than that initially. I think it's kind of a good starting point. But here's the thing that a lot of people won't tell you, and then I only say this, well, I say this mostly because I teach video as a skill and people are scared to get on camera,
Sure.
understandably. You got to care about what you're talking about. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to pick a bunch of topics, like let's say your ideal customer is, I work with a lot of real estate agents. So let's say they're like, a young first time buyer. And they love to go out to happy hours, and have a few drinks and that kind of stuff. But like, let's say you're somebody who doesn't drink, right? You don't have to force yourself to talk about the local happy hour at the bar just because the client cares. What you want to do instead is find where do you have overlap with them.
Right.
So that's the key, right? So to me, it's like, what are those 3 to 5 topics that my customer cares about, but I also care about, you know?
Yeah.
And so that might, maybe they have 5 or 10 things and you kind of find yours and you overlap them. We literally do a little Venn diagram in our classes
Yeah.
sometimes, and we find those overlaps. And what that does is now I'm going to care about what I'm saying. And if I'm just like writing a social post, maybe I can write about something I don't care about. But if I'm going to get on camera and talk about it, I should probably have some passion there. It's certainly going to
Yeah.
come across as more authentic and more engaging and more interesting to watch. And so I think that's kind of the next step. And then, to me, the thing beyond that is a lot of folks will talk about frequency. How often are you posting? How often
Yeah.
are people seeing your ads? Things like that. Definitely important. But I think consistency is what's really key there. And so I don't want, you'll see people like say, oh, post 3 times on TikTok every day. And most business owners like, I don't have that kind of time. I'm never going to get to that level. And they might try to do it for a week and then they fall on their face and they don't do it again for months. And that makes it look like you just vanished,
Yeah.
like you went out of business, right? So I think the consistency is the next step. So you have your topics, you're attracting the right people, and then just show up on a frequency that you can turn into a habit. So if it's once a week, you can make a video or go live once a week or, whatever that is, once a week blog post, start there and then let that become consistent. Let that become something you do on a sort of automatic basis. AI helps a lot because it makes it a lot easier. And then you can increase the frequency. I like to
Yeah.
kind of build on a foundation, right? So that's kind of a basic overview of some of the early steps, and obviously we can go a lot deeper on any of that. But I think if you can do those things, you're gonna cut through the noise. You're gonna show up in a way that people are gonna notice, and that's the hardest part right now.
That's a really good point. So yeah, understanding your ideal customer. One question I have about that is that sometimes I feel, and I'm sure the other people listening would have this question potentially as well, that we focus on the first time home buyer that drinks down the local on a Friday afternoon. It might have been your example there. Are we missing out on a bigger part of the market? Like if we niche down too far, is that going to be a problem?
The thing is, so like I live in the St. Louis area in Missouri, and there's a little bit under 3 million people in the greater metropolitan area in this part of the country. So it's a decent market. There's something in the close to the range of 20,000 real estate agents that serve those people. And so I always look at it as like, look, I mean, I can always expand. I can always add another customer avatar if I have to. But if you think about it, it's like, all right, you got 20,000 people competing for the attention of 3 million. That's a lot of people in both sides of that equation, right? So I think
Yeah.
on the one hand, and so there's a little nuance there, right? Because if I'm in a market where it's much smaller, like in a small town kind of area, maybe just only 10,000 people, yeah, that might be different. I might need to be kind of more broad, but I also don't have as much competition, right? So not as much noise. So I think that's the differentiating, that's the part that's going to kind of make that decision for you. So if I am in a bigger metropolitan area with lots of competitors, it's going to help me get attention by being more specific, right?
Yeah.
So for example, I always, point out like, look, if you had a big room full of people and you had, 20 agents all standing around the outside and they're all saying, hey, I can help you buy or sell a house. I can help you buy or sell a house. But one of them says, I help doctors buy or sell houses. If you're a doctor in that crowd, you're going to hear that one agent, right? Because it's
Mm.
it's like when somebody says your name across the room, like you hear your name, but you don't pick up anything else that people are saying. So it's all, you're triggering subconscious things, that's what ultimately is happening there. So I think that's what it comes down to is if
Yeah.
I have a large audience, I want to get narrow because there's going to be enough people that represent that first time buyer we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And they're going to have things in common. They won't be necessarily exactly the same person every time, but there'll be enough overlap. There's thousands of those people, right? If I'm in a small market and there's not as much variety, then I might want to go a little bit more broad. But otherwise, I mean, until you've captured those target people or they don't exist, maybe you find that out after a little bit of time. That's when I would make a change. But what I've almost always found is if you go in and you do this and you stay consistent, you stay focused for just a few months, all of a sudden you're pulling leads. They're better leads than you've ever gotten because they know you and they like you and they trust you more than people used to in the past because they've seen your content already.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes
And
sense.
they start coming in, right? So yeah, so that's kind of a long answer, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of how I
good.
see
That's
it.
good. And it makes sense. And I assume off that particular avatar, there'll be, related categories that will come towards you anyway through that process.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, and then that's what, people always get sort of worried about this. And I've noticed lately in the past couple of years, there's a lot less concern. I think people are learning this lesson kind of on their own. But yeah, the reality is like if you say things 4 out of 5 times that I find really interesting and care about, like I'm probably not gonna just push you away because of the fifth video not being something I care about. I may not even see it, right? So yeah, you're gonna get the people that have, so there's sort of there's sort of these layers that go outside of your ideal customer,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're gonna get those people too, right? So I think
Okay.
that's, you may push a couple people away, and I think you got to be okay with that, right? Like in some cases, personally, I always tell folks, look, if there are people I go back in time and say if I could avoid working with that person, I would happily do so, get some bad clients every now and then. And so that's one thing marketing can do too, is it can really show people like who you're the right fit for and who you're not the right fit for, and then that person goes and hires somebody else that is a better fit and you're both happier for it, right? So there's both sides to that, I think. And it is okay to push some people away. You don't want to make them feel, bad or anything like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
But that's okay, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the idea, thinking about those past three clients over the last 6 months that you've worked with, that you really gelled with or really appreciated, and using that as your basis for forming who your ideal client is. What other strategies would you have for someone to understand their ideal client?
Well, I mean, if you don't like, so sometimes you get folks that are new to the industry or they haven't done this before. And it's almost more exciting because then you can really build it from scratch, so you can kind of sit down and think about. I would start with the easiest stuff's always going to be the things that are related to what you do as a business, right? So, if I want to work with, luxury buyers, okay, there's certain income levels that are going to come to mind, right? There's certain careers that are probably going to fit that better than others, right? There's going to be certain parts of town where those people are going to live. So that's the other approach. We actually have a questionnaire that we'll give out to our students and say, look, here's your 15 questions, and you kind of go through them and you answer them,
Right.
and those are going to be, yeah, that kind of information. Um, most people, if you think about it a little bit, like you probably, if you're being honest with yourself, you could probably answer a lot of that information already.
Yeah.
If not, I'll tell you right now, this is something AI is really good at. AI is really good at sort of parsing through information and even asking you questions. So that would be another approach is you can kind of go to ChatGPT or any of the free AIs and they'll all know what a customer avatar is. It's a very common thing in marketing. So if you just sort of explain that, hey, I want to build a customer avatar. Here's what I'm doing for a living. Here's how long I've been doing it. Here's, maybe some details about what I consider to be my strengths. This is which separates me from a competitor, stuff like that. It'll just ask you a few questions and, answer them to the best of your
Yeah.
ability and it'll give you ideas, So I think
Yeah.
that's probably the easiest way to do it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that myself. Yeah, it works quite well. So when you identify your target market, how do you then, and this is something I struggle with really, is how do you then come up with the key messaging around how you're going to communicate to them? And the second question to that is, how repetitive do you want to be with that messaging without
Yeah,
sounding
that's
like
a
a
good
broken
question.
record?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is you want to be super repetitive. I mean, I always sort of challenge people on that in the sense that it's like, look, I mean, show me somebody who is saying too much of the same thing. And you're probably going to show me somebody that's super famous, somebody that's really well known. And I think it's a lot of times that's the reality is like if you think about the number of people, if you go on social media or you go out and you're networking, you're doing all these things in a given day, like how many people are you seeing? It's probably many hundreds, if not thousands of total people. And you're not going to remember much about any of them, right? So I think that's kind of answering your second question
Hmm.
first. But I think, that so it's okay to kind of keep coming back to those topics over and over again. Now, I think a lot of this comes down to you got to trigger people's curiosity, right? So I think that there's an ability to sort of be controversial, I mean that kind of comes up a lot. I think anytime you can position what you're saying, even if it isn't controversial, and you'll see this, right? Like a lot of social posts and whatnot are written with like, can you believe most people do this way? Like this is how they should really do it. And even if it's something like, how to research buying your first house and it's really non-controversial, you can sort of reframe things that way. So I think that goes a long way. I think asking questions is great. That seems to be highly effective as a hook in videos, as a social post, They can be related to business, or they can be related to these topics, that aren't. You see a lot of people do just sort of generalized engagement bait. What's the worst topping on a pizza or something, like that.
Yeah.
That's fine, but to me, that's not helping you identify your ideal customer. But I think anytime you can phrase something as something controversial, something as a question, and then the topics, if as long as you're sticking to the same, I would say like four, maybe five overall topics, right? And then that can be fairly broad. Like when I say topics, like one of those can be like the local sports team that you like and your customer likes, right? And like one can be, what you do for a living is one of your pillars and stuff, so they're fairly broad. But you want to be known for certain things, right? Like so like with the AI stuff I'm doing, AI can be used for a million different things, but I'm trying to become known as the adaptive lead magnet guy, the guy who's doing just this one really specific thing with AI, because that's a much better way to get remembered, because
Yeah.
that's going to
Yeah.
stand out in people's minds, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to is like how can you be a little bit unique and then talk on those things so often that people can't help but remember you for them.
Yeah. It makes sense. It does make sense. So talk to us about video. I mean, you work with a lot of agents in this space and about video branding, and you've been doing it for some
Mm.
time, so you've probably seen it change over the period, but I assume the fundamentals are still the same. How would you work with someone in creating video content? And what would be your advice as to what style of video content that should be today?
Yeah, I mean, what I find is, especially when you're getting started, and that's where I sort of specialize is getting people going for the first time.
Right.
I think a lot of it is it's so easy to overcomplicate. It's so easy to go into perfectionist mode. Like as soon as we see ourselves on a screen, like there's all the psychology that's going on there, right? I mean, like, a lot of us, depending on how old you are, you probably grew up with like things like TV and the movies being the primary place you would see somebody on a screen,
Yeah.
And so your brain kind of jumps straight to like, oh my God, I'm on television. Oh my God, I'm on a movie, I'm in a movie, which is very disorienting. Obviously, that's not what's happening, but that's there. So I do think, there's a lot to overcome if you're getting started. So what I always try to start people out with is reward yourself with the complexity because you've done the work, right? So you made the videos. So like I always tell people, for example, with equipment, before I'm ever gonna buy equipment, I'm gonna encounter the problem that the equipment solves. So I'm not gonna go out and buy lights. I'm not gonna go out and buy a microphone, fancy camera, any of that kind of stuff until I've tried to make a video and I've looked at it and gone, oh, I can't see my face. I guess I need a light, right?
Right.
Because otherwise those are just reasons to procrastinate. So you start super simple. I personally start with video messages, like literally talking to one person at a time. Like my favorite version of that is just a happy birthday video message. Say the person's name so they know you took the few seconds to record a quick little video for them. You don't got to do anything goofy or sing or anything. Just say happy birthday, hope you're having a great day, and send it over, right? Like Facebook literally tells you when it's somebody's birthday, and it even has the message button right next to their name. Those are so easy. They're low pressure. Nobody has any expectations of how you look or sound. And you get in the habit of just sort of seeing yourself on camera, hearing your voice for a couple seconds, and they also get great business results. I mean, I'll tell you, like when you do this, like people remember it. Like my birthday was a few days ago, and the few people that sent me birthday videos, like I can see their faces in my head right now. I can't remember who wrote on my wall on my Facebook profile. So I think that that can trigger all kinds of great conversations, all kinds of great engagement. It's very personal, it's very intimate. And then from there, I think another thing you can do is focus on batch creating content. Keep them short. If you get kind of past the video messaging stage, I like to just film with your phone. Just you can even make a script and put it into a teleprompter and read it into the camera if you want. There's literally tools now
Yeah.
that will fix your eye contact. So if you read a script and you're looking, not at the camera lens, it'll fix that for you. I mean,
Yeah.
there's built into a lot of stuff now. So it's just like the excuses are just sort of evaporating very very quickly. So I like to batch it. Sit down, have 3 or 4 scripts ready, record them all in the same setting. If you want to change shirts, you can, but don't worry about it, I think. And then just focus on getting them out there, right? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is they make a video or two, but they never share them, and they sit on their computer and they hem and haw for months and months. And it's a shame because the more you do it, the less you're going to care about the perfection of it. You're going to realize it's just about getting it done and having that conversation with, 100 people, a couple hundred people, whoever sees it. but that's a lot more people than you're probably seeing in person every week, you know? So the
Yeah.
benefits are huge to just do something, right? And then
Yep.
again, it's all habit. It's all about the habit. So the more you can
Yep.
form the habit, the more you can be consistent. That's what's going to get you there.
And like you said earlier, it's not about the performance necessarily, it's about the connection and the communication with someone.
Right. I mean, the human brain, there's a part of the brain, it's called the fusiform face area and the fusiform gyrus, and it's basically dedicated to recognizing human faces. And so it's where the familiarity principle comes from, which just
Right.
states that the more often you see somebody, the more you automatically like and trust them, which is used to manipulate us all the time. So, always keep that in the back of your head. Like just by seeing someone on a consistent basis, you will start to like them. You'll start to trust them. And that's it. I mean, like they don't even have to watch your video, but if they scroll through social and they see your face for a couple seconds, and that happens on a regular basis, that trust is forming, right? So I
Right.
think that's probably the biggest benefit you get from being on in a
Right.
video, right? So you got
Yeah.
to be on camera, you got to put your face in it, but if you do that, that familiarity is huge.
Yes. Yeah. What are most people getting wrong then with video right now? Like, I mean, the tech
Oh,
aside, like I love the idea of
yeah.
just getting on the camera, connecting with the audience in your passionate, vulnerable way, to your ideal client, obviously, and then just putting it out there. And then,
Hmm.
there's all these tools around us that we can use if we want to, if we think it's going to enhance it, but not necessary. So don't overcomplicate it.
Right.
What else are we doing wrong other than
Well, other than I think main thing is people are avoiding it, right? So that's probably the main thing people are doing wrong is
right?
is making it more than it has to be. But what
Yeah.
I will say is to get a little more useful, because that's pretty generic. What a lot of people are getting wrong is they're not getting to the point. I think a lot of folks like what they're getting wrong is they fail to understand how important the first 3 seconds are. And so in the marketing world, we call that first 3 seconds the hook of a video. And it has to grab them. It has to grab the attention of the viewer. It has to give them in the first 3 seconds a reason to watch the rest of the video. A lot of people, even to this day, are starting their videos with something like, "Hey, it's Nick here. Today I'm going to share something with and it's like, who I can see your name on your Facebook profile or your TikTok
Right.
account or whatever. Like, I don't need you to tell me who you are. And most people are going to see your stuff, know who you are. They're your followers, your friends, your connections, right? So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see with video. It's one of the biggest reasons, and it's a shame because a lot of these folks, your videos will do poorly, right? They won't perform, they won't get a lot of views, they won't get a lot of comments because you lose all your viewers in the first few seconds, and then the algorithm won't show it to anybody else. And then they don't think it's working, right? So I think it is one of the more technical parts in terms of getting it right. Now, the good news is it's not hard to do right. Again, it comes back to bold statements or questions. What is the video about? What's the ultimate point you're going to get to? Can you sum it up in a few seconds? Can you ask a question that you're going to answer? Visually, can you show people something? Like if it's you're talking about a particular place, can you wear a hat with the logo on it, right? Like there's just little things we can do. Like I'll just pick up stuff on my desk sometimes, kind of use it as a
Yeah.
prop in the first few seconds. It doesn't have to be complicated, but anything that's a bit of a pattern interrupt, something that's a little bit of a disruption to the viewer, because you got to remember, like most of the stuff we're doing, if it's ads, if it's social posts, if it's emails, what are they doing? They're scrolling, right? Scroll, scroll, scroll. Like that's what you're trying to disrupt. And I think that's the key. So if you get that right, the rest of the video matters at that point, but it doesn't matter until they get through the first few seconds. And so that would be
Right.
the next thing to think about, right? Is like how can I hook that
How can you
viewer?
engage them straight
Um,
up? Hmm.
yeah, exactly. Get them pulled in, right? And then higher level is obviously keeping them engaged throughout the video. So you just kind of rehook them over and over again. That's why you see a lot of videos with, sound effects, B-roll, graphics that pop up, all that kind of stuff. But if you don't get them in the first 3 seconds, none of that matters.
Yeah. To start with that, does there need to be a call to action in your videos, or can it just be purely connecting and showing your
Well,
face?
yeah, I mean, I think the answer is kind of both. I
Yeah.
think that every video will benefit from some kind of call to action, but they don't always have to be promotional, right? So like if I don't have something, like if I'm not asking people to call me to or like, one of my calls to action might be, hey, I got this guide. If you want it, comment below and I'll send it to you, right? That's a business thing. if I don't have a business call to action, I will give them something to do to increase the engagement on the video. And I think you should always probably do that, right? So if I'm talking like just giving advice or something, or I'm talking about my favorite sports team or something like that, I'll say something like, well, what do you think? Let me know what you think about the latest trade or transfer or whatever it is,
Mm.
And that just gets people to engage, right? It gets them commenting on the video. Comments of anything you can get are typically sort of the most valuable. Make sure you're replying to them because every comment counts, including your own. And that person's going to feel, better because you're actually engaging with them and talking to them. And those back and forth conversations are sometimes what leads to business. So that's important too. But I think at least having something that said, hey, if you like this video, give it a like, or hey, what do you think about this topic? Comment below. That's a good default just to make sure that you're getting kind of the most benefit out of the video. You're getting people to engage with you and have a conversation with you. But don't do more than one. That's the other side of it, right? You'll get people who are like, well, I got this thing to give you, and then also comment, and then also, hit me up
Right.
with a phone call. Confusing, and they won't do any of it. So it's one call to action, one only. They don't all have to be promotional, but it's helpful to tell people kind of what the right next thing to do might be.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. With video, there's so many platforms that we can do video on: YouTube, TikTok, different formats, different styles. How do
Yeah.
we navigate that space? Is it again just honing on the one that you prefer or do best, or is there a particular strategy to it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a tough one, and I have that's kind of changed for me over the years. What I tell people now is like post where you're already spending time. Like you can like there was a point where you had to really think about who uses which platform, and that is still there. But at this point, like there's only so many mainstream social media platforms left. And they all have a fairly diverse user base, right? Like there was a point where the older folks were only on Facebook, and they're realistically using a lot of the other places now too. Young folks obviously are going to be a little bit less likely to be on Facebook, but a lot of them are there kind of out of necessity. So, I think there is a degree of thinking about who's using the platform and
Yeah.
maybe adjusting because of that. But most of it is, are you using it? And are you going to check your notifications? Like I used to have like these automated systems and I'd post on all these different places and I was like, why am I posting on Twitter? And that's called X. But why was I posting that? Like, I don't ever tweet. I don't ever log in. If people do respond to me, I don't see it for like days, which is kind of rude. And so I stopped, and it didn't really hurt my business at all because I wasn't really doing much there in the first place. So I think, don't necessarily go the route of, oh, I got to be everywhere because you absolutely don't. I think mostly focusing on the places where you will see people responding to you and be able to get back to them quickly is the most important part.
Yeah. I like that. I want to. I'm conscious of time here, so I want to get into this
Mhm.
adaptive AI that you're working on now. Talk to us about this
Yeah.
AI space and what you're doing there.
Yeah, so basically I'm using AI, in particular Claude typically, although I use Cursor as well, to
What is
write
Claude and what
code.
is Cursor?
Yeah, so Claude and Cursor, well, Claude is another AI platform, competes with ChatGPT. So they have different models. They build their own AI models, and they have one of their most recent ones is called Sonnet 3.7. Tends to be really good at code. 3.5 is really good too. So you can go to the Claude website. There is a free version you can use. And then Cursor is kind of like the next level beyond that. Cursor, one of the fastest growing companies in the world, actually, right now. But it's got an AI coding agent. So with Cursor, you can literally like build entire tech platforms from scratch. You just sort of explain what you want, it writes all the code for you, and deploys a lot of it. So it's a little techy, right? Probably not something that the average user is going to jump into right away. But what I've been doing is I go to there's a company called Hugging Face, which is a hosting platform for AI tools.
Right.
And so I've been mostly using Hugging Face. And I'll find, an existing tool. I'll copy the code. I'll go to Claude. I'll say, hey, look, I'm going to give you this code. I want to make a new tool, but I want you to use this code as a template. And so that's kind of, I did a lot of behind the scenes stuff to kind of get to that point. But now it's easy because there's so many of these tools already out there. So for example, if you want to look up my name, N Niehaus, Niehaus, I have a profile on Hugging Face and feel free to copy any of mine. But that's what's so cool about it is like you can just describe what you want. You don't have to write any code, right? Like I did take some coding in college, so it's not totally foreign to me. I don't remember any of it, so it just makes me a little more comfortable, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I just describe it, I copy the code, I put it over on Hugging Face, and you can have tools that can do almost anything you can imagine. So what's really cool is like I'm starting to take them now and I give them away. So I say, okay, look, for example, I have a tool. One of my favorites is it's a video funnel planner, right? So it's going to give you a plan for a bunch of different videos in a certain sequence to create a video marketing funnel. Well, the way it works is you just literally input your website URL, and in the back end, it looks at your website, it uses that to understand what your business does and who your ideal customer is and what you offer and everything else, and then it just creates the plan for you. So for the user, like literally it takes them 15 seconds at most to type in their website, hit a button, and a minute later they got a completely customized video marketing funnel plan. And so then what I do is I just go out and offer it to people. I go to Facebook groups, run some ads, whatever it might be. Say, hey, you ever wanted a video funnel plan for your business? Because you can get one for free and it takes like 2 minutes. Just let me know and I'll send it over to you, right? So I think I call them adaptive lead magnets. It's basically the next step beyond a current lead magnet, which might be, hey, I've got a video funnel guide or plan for you, and you can kind of take it and then adjust it to your own business. Well, now because AI, we can take those same things and the AI can do that work. It can make those adjustments
Right.
for us. And so everything can be completely personalized to the user. And so, obviously people like that, right? They love stuff that's personalized, that's custom to just them and their business. So
100%.
there's a million
Yeah.
examples, but that's kind of the core concept. Yeah.
So for real estate agents right now, what would you be saying as far as AI and what to use there?
Man, I mean, there's so much. I will say,
There is a lot.
you know, it's fine to use it in your business. Be really careful letting AI speak for you unless you're very carefully reviewing all of it, because I think that's where a lot of agents have kind of gone of like, hey, can I have it do my calls for me? Can it write all my emails, and that can be fine, but you got to be really careful, right? Because if it doesn't sound like you, if it comes across as kind of formulaic or AI has a certain way it writes if you don't adjust it, people don't like that. So what I recommend and kind of where I'm focusing on is how can you give the customer a better experience? Like how can you, provide for them a level of service, a level of personalization, customization that they're not getting from your competitors. And that might not mean you're saving a ton of time or money, but if you're giving people a better experience, they're going to want to, there's more of them that are going to want to work with you, right? So
Yeah,
like,
100%.
again, kind of coming back to the example of these adaptive lead magnets, like I made one that's called a home value maximizer. So the way it works is you take some pictures of your house with your phone, you upload them, it analyzes the property, and then it gives you recommendations on what you might want to update or fix before you list it to maximize the price when you sell. So that's the kind of thing that I can offer to people before they've listed, because that's obviously when I want to get them before they have an agent, and it'll help them. It'll give them some personalized advice, and now I've just done something for them that none of my competitors have done for them, right? So I think to me that's where the opportunity here is sure we can save time, we can save money, we can automate. That's all good, but it's mostly good for us. It's not necessarily good for the customer. And so if you're asking yourself, what can I use AI to do that's going to make my customers experience, better, easier, faster, answer questions that they don't even know they have yet, like all that kind of stuff. It just makes you look like a wizard, and then they're like, my God, you've already helped me with all these things for free, and I haven't even had to talk to you. I didn't have to get on
Yeah.
a phone call or anything. It's going to be amazing actually working with you. And so, yeah, I mean, last thing I'll say on that is I love also implementing video there because that's going to turn that experience into much more of a connection to you. So if you make a little video of yourself demoing the tool, showing them how it works, excuse me, and then also maybe telling them how they can contact you after they get their results so you can kind of have a follow-up conversation about it. Now they're going to associate all the positives they're getting there directly with you, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of combining the two things I do together. But that seems like super super effective. And I hope it catches on. I hope more people start to see AI as a way to provide a better experience versus just save themselves time and money.
It makes sense. No, really good point. And so a lot of these things you'd set up as a sort of a lead page or on your main site as a lead funnel with a little video, a bit of the tool, how it works, so people
Yeah,
can grab it and
absolutely.
then
Yeah, I think the ideal way to do it, there's two things I'll recommend. One, is you go to social and you either make a direct post, or even better is you find somebody else's post that you can comment on. So for example, like you'll see somebody in big Facebook groups moving to town. Make sure you're not stepping on toes when you do this, but they may say like, "Hi, I'm thinking about moving to your area. What neighborhood should I consider?" Well, there's 20 agents chiming in. Hey, I'm happy to show you around, all that kind of stuff. So you can chime in and say, "Hey, I've got this tool that's going to help you answer that. It's called Neighborhood Matchmaker. It's going to help you find your ideal neighborhood. Let me know if you want it." What I've seen happen with those kinds of organic posts is not just the person who posted will say, "Yes, I want that." You'll get other people asking for it too. So all of a
Yeah,
sudden you'll have a stream of comments below your post with people asking for it. And in that case, you don't have to do much in terms of setup, because as long as you have the tool created and it can be hosted on Hugging Face and made public so anybody can access it even without an account. In that case, just say, "Hey, look, I'm going to message it to you." You message them the link, they use it, and then you just keep messaging them, right? Because now you got a conversation started. So that's one way to do it that I like. The other is you just gatekeep it on your website. So what you do is you make a little video, show them how to use it, little landing page, but they don't get it until they click a button and fill a form out, right? And then once they fill the form out, you've got their contact information. It's a hot lead. Then the thank you page contains the tool. So that way they don't, so there's a couple different ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to use it though. I mean, I also like just leaving them on a blog post, because they help from like a search engine optimization standpoint. Lots of directions to go, but I like to get leads whenever I can. I've been jenning for a long time. So I'm a big fan of doing something that gets me their contact information.
yeah, 100%. Hugging Face, that's certainly one to check out from your conversation today. Last question I want to ask you, because I'm curious to what your thoughts are, and I think I know what they might be, but using video AI.
Well, yeah, there, good and bad there for sure. I personally am not a fan of the avatar videos where you're just sort of, there's like a fake version of you. But there are video tools for faceless videos. Like my buddy has a company called Syllabi, that I'm a big fan of, that generates videos that you're not in, right? So they're kind of supplemental. I would still make videos that you're on screen in. But the reality is, like, I think you got to be a little careful. Like, here's the thing, right? I wouldn't want to meet somebody having watched several of their videos to find out that it wasn't them. Like
Yeah,
that would be a really sort of, it would hurt the trust that I had in them, because it will develop trust, right? So it's kind of like a rug pull a little bit, right? It's sort of the sense of like, I thought we were having a conversation, because you could do that with Zoom eventually. Like, it's not probably far from now, you'll be able to have like a fake Zoom avatar that attends meetings for you and talks with your voice and has your face and all this kind of stuff. And I just think to myself, like, if I did a Zoom meeting with somebody and found out later it wasn't them, I would feel very weird about that. You know what I mean? Like that would be very kind of disturbing. So, that's just my opinion. Obviously, not everybody
yeah,
shares that opinion, but I do think there's something there in terms of the trust. It's your
good
face.
point.
I'm
Yeah,
very protective of who can use my face, and I don't like the idea of a computer using it. But that's just me. I have a lot of students, a lot of
yeah.
clients, like they love it. They want to do it because they don't want to be on camera. So there's opinions on both
There's
sides.
applications for it. Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Mate, thank you so much for coming on the show today. How can people
Of
be
course.
reach out to you and best connect?
Well, the website bizvideoschool.com is probably the best way to go. I love connecting with people on Facebook. So if you just want to look
Yep.
me up, Nick Niehaus on Facebook, and then myeverydayai.com if you're curious about the AI stuff.
All right. We'll stick those links in the show notes for everyone listening out there today. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll chat soon. Have a great day. All right, there you have it, my interview with Nick Niehaus. Let me know what you think. We can connect on Facebook or Insta. Probably the easiest way to get me. And if you'd like the show notes and links to Nick, as always, it'll be available at thehiddenwhy.com. We can certainly connect more there as well. I'm about to launch a new podcast. It's for real estate agents. I'm a real estate agent here in Australia, down under, and I'm very passionate about what I do. Both for the Hidden Why, personal development, helping people live life with greater freedom, fulfillment, and happiness. But I also love real estate, and I'm very passionate about it and want to help more agents succeed, because I think there's a lot of fluff in the industry, and it doesn't have to be so complicated or difficult or scary, and it can be very, very enjoyable as well. So start smart, real estate reimagined, empowering agents to create a business and life they love. That will be coming soon. So watch this space, guys, and reach out if there's anything we can help you with. Have a great week ahead.